Marking a big milestone. In Fridley today, they celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Pacemaker, the invention that launched a major Minnesota corporation, Medtronics, and the man responsible for the Pacemaker and former employees posed in front of a replica of the garage where history was made 50 years ago. It all started with an engineer/tinkerer in the late 1940s.
His first month's revenue, $8. Today, Medtronic bills more than $1 billion a month. Tonight in the Extra, KARE 11's Rick Kupchella sits down for a rare interview with Earl Bakken, the man who started it all, the tinkerer who became a real Twin Cities icon.
This is the world headquarters of Medtronic today, one of the largest companies in the world, made in Minnesota. But like a lot of big stories these days, this one started out pretty small.
When I was 8 years old, I went to the movie with a friend of mine, and we saw Frankenstein, and this excited me. And it was the electricity that excited me, the use of electrical.
He turned it into a little business right out of school in this garage. He called it Medtronic right away and started fixing all kinds of medical stuff.
Because hospitals are starting to use electronic devices.
Doctors here, some of the best in the nation at the time, started asking Earl to stay with them in surgery. They wanted him to keep all the fancy new electronic equipment they had working throughout the whole surgery. Think about it for a minute. Back in the 40s and 50s, if they lost power, the failure could be profound. That's just what happened back in 1957. There was a major power outage through central Minnesota and Wisconsin. A giant electrical pacemaker like this one quit working. It had been keeping a little kid alive. That little child died when the power went out. The doctor said in exasperation to Earl, "Can't you come up with something that doesn't require electricity to help keep these kids alive?" Well, Earl got to work and he found the schematic for a metronome, one of these devices that helps keep the time in music. And within weeks, he turned it into the world's first battery-operated pacemaker. He tried it on a dog and it worked, and within days, doctors hooked that very device up to another child. Earl just happened to run into that child at the hospital, and this is the moment that changed Earl's life.
Here's something we had made with our own hands, keeping this child alive. Yet the question was, had we made it well enough to be used in this way to keep a child's heart beating?
Right then and there, Earl says he knew what he was supposed to do with his life.
Well, I think the proudest is seeing that first pacemaker work on a child. That was such an emotional thing for my life.
In concentrating on the pacemaker, Earl didn't just invent a product, he launched an industry, medical technology, ultimately pioneering the idea of implanting this technology inside the human body. In his lifetime, he has seen the company go from this garage to more than 37,000 employees doing business in 120 countries. Earl always was the inspiration, the engineer. He says he was never the businessman.
And I've always had a partner.
His first business partner was his brother-in-law, Palmer Hermansley. He died many years ago. Their first employee was John Bravis.
It took the two of them, two different personalities. One of them was the talker and the guy that would go around trying to get money to keep us afloat. And we almost went under the first 3 or 4 years. And I even lent them some money. 6% interest. I think of that now. I would have said, keep the money, I'll take the stock, you know.
Bravis said chipping in about $1,000 way back when was the equivalent of about 5% of the company at the time, a company with profits of a couple billion a year today. Like Earl, he had no idea how big it would get. 50 years later, the pacemaker remains a big share of Medtronic's business, about 15%. The device, so small today, Earl can hold it like a coin. On the back of every one is printed the corporate mission he wrote so long ago.
All in all, it's been good. I'm very excited about it, and of course it's still very exciting. And it's hard to believe that it's 50 years since I invented that first pacemaker.
Rick Kupchella, KARE 11 News.
What a life. Earl Bakken benefited from his own research. He, too, has a Medtronic pacemaker. You can see much more of Mr. Bakken's interview on KARE11.com.